I've been called to share something that I wasn't sure if or when I was going to disclose. And it does feel like a disclosure meeting simply because we are unveiling as a collective the many layers or many subjective avatars and lifetimes that our timeless consciousness has experienced itself through. This could be something in which you're pulling in, I'm hearing information that you're pulling in from the ethers. We're talking about past lives, parallel lives, and being able to integrate and see them clearly in ways that you were not able to see from that myopic lens. I'm seeing it as expanding the frameworks in how you view yourself through lifetimes and extending compassion for yourself in every lifetime that you have been seeded into. Okay. So I'm going to share with you today something that occurred in Pelenke. Pelenke is a really, really beautiful place. Pelenke is one of the reasons that I came to Mexico. The main reason, to be honest, why I came to Mexico, because there were so many years of dreaming about it since I was a child, even not knowing the name of the place in this lifetime, but somewhere that my body remembered being. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to dive into it. I'm probably going to throw in some illustrations just so that you can follow along and some video footage of the site as well while I was there. But we're going to first begin with the fact that Pelenke at one point, it stopped feeling like a place and it began feeling like this field of memories that I was walking through and reliving and seeing. And I'll explain that further in the way that there are timelines that are simultaneously playing out where these past lives that you have are still playing out. Like, time is not linear. Okay, it's not that you go from this lifetime and then you transition to this one and you transition to this one. This is like points within space-time that you are experiencing and you believe that you're limited to because that's all you can see. But quantumly, these are parallel lives that are playing out simultaneously. And this is just the space in time and the time and space and the lifetime in which you're currently perceiving. Now, something that I'm seeing that's probably important to mention is the living field of memory that you have access to from these parallel lives. And these are memories that are encoded into you that are then projected into the morphic field around you. Now, this morphic field holds the memory of everything that you have experienced yourself as. Dimensions are not spatial concepts, or that's what the brain is formatted to believe. Instead, they are frequencies that are self-organized. And within each one of these frequencies, we have timelines or ecosystem of experiences and people and events that have transpired, where those versions of reality or those layers of reality coexist. Does this make sense? I'm trying to articulate this in a way that, because it's so complex, I'm trying to articulate it in a way that is going to be easily digestible and can be easily integrated. But anyway, we all understand this, right? And one of the things that I was seeing was this distortion that was playing out in the field in what connection actually is. And in loads of these memories or these visions, there was much focus on the external world. So one of the first scenes that I saw walking into the site was this level of survival, this threat that I felt in the land, and also this hierarchy. So these are themes that I felt within my body as emotions and certain thought forms that were penetrating the field from lifetimes where this encoded expression resided or occupied this realm. So I was coming in to neutrally observe what those themes were. And our connection to the divine was something that became very dangerous. It was something in which we were taught would be dangerous to be authentic with ourselves. So the first scene that I saw in a memory, so imagine this, I'm walking through Pelenke, right? And I'm walking in the direction that I would actually be running away from in so many dreams that I've had, okay? Like reoccurring dreams of being on this land and running away from this particular direction and deeper into the chaos of the system, deeper into the distortion, deeper into the illusional separation, into survival programming. This time I was here and I was doing something different. I was actually walking in the direction, feeling the fear in my body, but still choosing to do it anyway, that I would always run from, because I was coming back to this land and showing up for myself in a way that I wasn't able to previously do before. So what I realized is that we were being chased away from a place that the high priest would reside, and we were being chased away from the place to where we would have a connection to our higher field, to truth, to heart, to unity. And these, when we zoom out enough, it really isn't suffering that occurred, okay? When we zoom out enough, we see that this is literally just a construct of contrast that we have designed for us to experience in the third dimension. We have the privilege of being able to experience moving through the system, being deeply disconnected and being in fear. And the stark contrast is being able to be extremely connected to yourself as you move through the system and recognize it as the illusion that we've created to play in, right? So when we zoom out enough, it really no longer feels like suffering. Okay, we observe that suffering from that perspective that is extremely limited, okay, in range of being able to see the totality of the experience. So anyway, I was seeing themes around manipulation. What I was seeing clearly is that the energy wasn't suppressed, it was redirected, and it was being poured forth into the lower centers of the root chakra, the sacral, and the solar plexus, which is the matrix monad. It's something that actually keeps us cut off from the heart and blocks off life force from being able to channel into these upper centers of awareness. So it's when we direct our focus so much solely on the external material plane that we forget ourselves as an immaterial being experiencing the physical realm. And the misconception is that there was a belief that was formed in that moment, which was to be spiritual or remembering yourself as spirit navigating the physical form would actually become dangerous. And that was never truth. That was a truth that was adopted, that was conditioned in this past life, okay, parallel version of me. And that was adaptation to the environment itself. So it's where you become a product of the conditioning of your environment. And it's where if you don't know who you are, then the world will tell you who you are. I want to be very clear that it's not about identifying with, okay, I was the victim in this circumstance, because there's also many lifetimes in which we have also been the perpetrator, and both are positions of weakness. So when we talk about the lower monad matrix being kind of turned in on itself and being the only perspective that you experience this reality through, it literally disconnects you from the heart space. And that's where we fall into dynamics of it's me versus you. This is about power versus being powerless, or it's about a place where you enter distortion of control versus submission. And this is literally the survival matrix programming. And that's an octave that exists within all of us, that we can unconsciously become if we're not conscious of those unconscious aspects of self, because it's very easy to just externalize our power. So the multidimensional field actually begins to open up the moment that you observe that aspect of self. So that was something that I was observing walking through the complex, being seated in the complex, and something began to shift in that moment, and the veil thinned. And when we speak about the veil thinning, that's just the human condition lifting, and you're looking at this life through higher bands of frequency light, which is seeing life on earth through the lens of the soul. And instead of just seeing the ruins, I literally began to see myself across the ruins in many, many lifetimes. And it wasn't just one version of self, it was many. I could not only feel, but I could see the version of myself that was running through the complex, just like I had experienced in dreams. One that was being pushed off from the pyramids and was falling down the stairs. One that was fighting, another that was begging for mercy, and another that was collapsing into pleasing just to survive the moment. And all these versions were existing within the same space. And these themes were just basically playing out. And I was seated down, I was walking there, and I was seeing all these versions of myself experiencing suffering, experiencing separation, experiencing, these themes of duality, essentially. And what struck me the most is that I could see all of them, but none of them could see me. And the reason for this is because I was no longer inside of the scene. I was the one outside observing it and seeing it clearly. Those versions of me were still inside the density. They still identified with the experience and were operating in survival. And I was standing there as the version that had integrated enough to begin to witness it. What I noticed is that they only saw me the moment that they were kissing death. Right? That's the moment that the human condition lifts and we tune into higher bandwidths of frequency light, and they perceive me like an angel in their field. And the reason for this is because the moment that the human condition lifts, the moment that our identity or the stories that we cling to dissolve, is the moment that we're no longer seeing life through that limited filter of perception. Instead, there's this recognition. It was like a softening where this fractal of myself that was literally struck against the head and was departing into these other realms saw me and was like, oh, it's you. Like, that is my higher self. That's my higher expression. And it's because in that moment, the illusion of separation dissolves and the soul remembers. I want to explain what this actually is on a quantum level and break it down just so that we can all understand this in our own life experiences. So what was actually happening is that what was in the past wasn't something that was just back there. Instead, all these versions of self still exist as frequencies within the field because, as we know, consciousness is not linear. So it exists as a simultaneous field of experience. So what I was perceiving were just different octaves of my own consciousness all existing at once. You can think about it as a radio station that's playing in the same place, and one version is tuned into fear, one is tuned into shame, another is in survival, one is in awareness and compassion and unity, and they all overlap, but they don't all perceive each other, and that's because perception is determined by frequency. This is what so many people misunderstand, and this is that dimensions are not just spaces. Instead, they're literally levels of awareness, okay? They're frequencies that we tune into that allow us to perceive things that another octave of us isn't actually able to perceive. These are different versions of you existing in these dimensions, and they're all existing simultaneously at different degrees of remembering and forgetting. And what became evident to me was that the angel that I perceived was literally me. It was just a more integrated expression of my own field, an aspect of my own consciousness that had already moved through density. And so it appeared like it was separate because that's how the human mind translates higher frequencies, but it was actually me. And the demon was also me. It was just a version of myself that was still suffering. It was still in contraction, still trying to protect through fear and control and distortion. And it's not that it was evil, it was just an unintegrated consciousness that was doing the best it could with the level of awareness that it had. So as I stood there, everything was shifting because I was beginning to send messages from the healed self. I was telling the unintegrated version of myself, very compassionate words, and I was just there in this deep understanding, looking at her as she's looking at me and being seated in this truth and holding space for both of those truths to coexist simultaneously. And as I did that, this version of myself began to soften, and it's because that healing is not linear. Instead, these aspects are not gone. They're literally patterns in the field. So when a higher level of consciousness meets them, the field began to reorganize. This is exactly what it was, because I, as a higher conscious being, actually began to observe and hold space for this fractal of myself that was still existing in suffering. And in that moment, its field began to reorganize. That's what quantum healing is. It's not something that's linear, but instead you're essentially reinforming the past, right? It's not about you trying to change the past, but you're reinforming it. You're seeing it from a higher perspective. And in that moment, this being remembers, oh, I extend and branch far beyond what these current limitations or conditions seem to be. And then it became even clearer. I was seeing the oppressed, but I was also seeing the oppressor. Lifetimes where I was suffering, and then also lifetimes where I was causing that suffering because of deep suffering that I was also going through. So these weren't enemies, but instead they were the same consciousness expressing itself through different, let's just say, modalities. Okay, they were expressing themselves in different ways, and when we zoom out enough, we see that's how source plays with itself through contrast, right? So we can experience ourselves through these subjective lenses, and when we zoom out enough, it makes complete sense, because from a higher level, this is all source experiencing itself through infinite fractals. We experience ourselves as the one who runs, the one who chases, the one who controls, and the one who surrenders. All of it is the one exploring itself. And this is what we're moving through now. And this is the integration part that humanity is evolving and maturing into. It's that we're not escaping the world, but instead we're moving through it, sustaining this level of remembrance for what the system actually is. And so while we are participating in this system, we can still see through the illusion of separation. And that integration is essential within itself. It's not about leaving the system, but it's about the higher self that can see the lower because it's already moved through it. But the lower cannot see the higher being because it's still living inside of that illusion of separation. And the body is where it's stored, right? This isn't just conceptual. It was literally in the body. I felt root contractions and third eye pressure, and my heart was aching as I moved through the site. And that ache was powerlessness that I felt when it comes to not taking agency over my own life. And so in this life, it was about me not trusting myself to meet my own needs. And the pattern was just watching and not acting and being a passive observer and not stepping in. The program became, I don't have power here. I don't have power on this earth. And that is something that the body remembers, that the mind hasn't lived in this lifetime, of where we have felt powerlessness and how we believe it because of the conditioning that we have adopted through many parallel existences. Like, this never started with you, but it can end with you when you see yourself clearly. And that's what's shifting right now, because in truth, you don't need others to understand you when you understand yourself. You don't need to be accepted externally when you fully accept yourself. You know, if you need a witness, become your own. And that's what we are seeing happen. That's where we are maturing. That is taking agency over our own life. It is meeting our own needs, standing in our truth and within the world, and not outside of it. Pelenke didn't just show me how to escape the storm. It literally taught me how to be seated in the eye of the storm and witness the cosmos and something that appeared to be chaotic within my own life experience, and to see the secret order and what once felt disorderly. All right, that's literally what this was. Not to be the victim or to identify as the oppressor, but the one experiencing itself through many mediums, through infinite expressions, and not to judge those different expressions. And that is this shadow integration. Okay, and now being aware of yourself and all aspects and orders within yourself, within the experience. And I'm also seeing it as where we oppress certain aspects of ourselves. The greatest relationship that we have in this lifetime is the one that we have with ourselves. So who are you to yourself? Truly, who are you to your own soul's expression? A neighbor that you sometimes just say hi to? A lover that you deeply care for and admire, a companion that you're there for, even in its darkest hour, a parent that you feel like there's always external authority, or an ally where you're able to become the author of your own story. You get to write the script and experience yourself as the main character that moves through the scenes that you are. To remember that you are the scenes and the field in which the body moves through. Be held in each scene in your life. Hold each octave that exists within you. So I am going to close out with a Gateway of the Light activation message, and then I'm going to love and leave you right there. We'll probably get one Mexico message as well. Right, let's get a message for Pelenke. I have all of these messages ready, by the way, for things that, because I was trying to shorten down something that occurred over many hours, and there's so many different aspects to it. But it was a place of reconnecting with yourself. I have a lot that I'm going to share in regards to what I experienced in Chichen Itza, what I experienced in 𝓂𝓵, what I experienced in many places, okay? Seraphim's Gateway, divine support. Does this make sense? Of course it does, because it's a bioplasm being. It's about remembering yourself as a plasma being. Voice activation and angelic attunement. We literally spoke about angels, right? This is the Seraphim's Gateway, which is also the seeing yourself clearly gateway, is what I'm seeing. So you are an archangel. That's what this is. You are that higher level of awareness that is able to see clearly everything in which you weren't able to see before. For these versions of self. We'll do a teaching on that. Should we do a teaching on it, on why lower dimensional beings can't see higher dimensional beings? And why higher dimensional beings can see lower dimensional beings, because they've already integrated all the dimensions below them. I think that would be interesting, because it would explain why some understand you and others cannot. It's the saying of others can only meet you as far as they've met themselves, because the paradox is, in order to go into higher dimensions, you must go deeper within yourself. To travel into higher dimensions requires lower brainwave states, right? So Seraphim's Gateway speaks just about that. Where is it? Here we go. Okay. This is miraculous planetary shifts that occur. Angelic presences report them as spiritual duty, as they don't operate in a linear way, but this is the best way for us to understand the process. So again, you do not operate in a linear way. This is quantumly coexisting, angelic presence that you hold within so that you can support your expansion in the world. So this is an awakening. It's a remembering. You are blessed to receive the light of the Seraphim. See, we like to speak about Yeshua and Jesus Christ and all of these different archetypes. However, do we also forget that Lucifer and the devil is also an octave within us as multidimensional beings? Source experiences itself as everything. The light cannot exist without the darkness. Not everything has to look like light for it to be light. It's infinite expressions of source. It's not for us to attach to, but it's for us to remain in the 0 point and neutral point, whether we're in the presence of an angel or a demon, for we understand its inner workings and how it manifests. Angelic support surrounds you at this time. Know that you are safe, for you are being held by the presence of love. The seraphims are witnessing the glory of your being, activating your angelic qualities. You care deeply about the welfare of the planet and all of her beings. In fact, you're hoping to make a great difference in the world, and for this reason, you're carrying angelic light. Let it shine on the world around you. So I literally have basically explained what an angelic being is, and that's why you're also an earth angel. So I'm going to love and leave it right there. That is, it's an important message I've been wanting to get out. I've been sitting on it for a while until it's felt like it's fully ready, and this is the one that I was being called to actually bring up forth first. So I'm gonna love and leave you right there. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, do consider subscribing. We'd love to have you around. Personal reading details are also down below. Also check out OTTER if you're looking for some high quality AAE grade gemstones. $1 of the proceeds are donated towards OTTER sanctuaries. And that will be it until next time. Bye.
It's the smell that's like, and the sound. I'm pretty sure it was here actually. That tunnel. You know what I said with the uncanny, yeah. It was on the book.